Good evening. I first started seeing Dr. Berkowitz in college. I had a cold or something that wasn't going away fast enough, and a friend referred me to Berkowitz. There wasn't anything particularly interesting about the visit or my illness, but Dr. Berkowitz listened patiently and gave me what I needed. What did stand out during that first visit was how Dr. Berkowitz took the time to talk to me about me, the complete me, not just my sore throat that day. He was patient and kind, a slender man in his early 50s. He asked me about my diet, my activity level, and whether or not I had healthy relationships with my peers, romantic or otherwise. Really, he made me feel like he cared. Maybe it was the first time a doctor had talked to me like I was an adult, but whatever it was, I knew then that I would keep coming back to see him. So when he suggested that I start scheduling yearly gyno exams, I agreed to make them with his office. He added that his partner was a woman, and I could schedule with her instead if that made me feel more comfortable, but I stuck with him. For whatever reason, I was fine with adding this man to the list of those lucky enough to peer into my vagina on a regular basis, and I actually felt comfortable with that idea. For the next few years, I saw Dr. Berkowitz at least once a year, usually more. As a college student, I wasn't exactly taking care of myself and saw him more than I remember seeing any other doctor in my childhood. Dr. Berkowitz was always patient and understanding, and despite the fact that going to the doctor is never really enjoyable, he made it as pleasant as it could possibly be, and each time he was sure to check in on my mental health as much as my physical. I'd say we had a good doctor-patient relationship going. And it was probably 3 years after I started seeing him that I got a letter in the mail from his office. I hadn't been in for a visit recently, so I assumed it was some sort of marketing or something. I was wrong. Very wrong. It was a very personal and brave letter, and one that I actually kept in my personal files for years after. And although I've since lost the copy, I will try to summarize. It went something like, Dr. Berkowitz will be taking a 6-week hiatus in early June. When he returns after the break, he will be known as Deborah Berkowitz. The letter went on to say that he had considered leaving his practice in order to start over as a woman in a more anonymous setting, but decided that his patients and his community were too important to him. In order to be as transparent as possible, his office was holding information sessions in the evenings and weekends for the next few months. The letter concluded with, please do not hesitate to share your concerns and questions with the staff and with Dr. Berkowitz personally. Whoa, I was shocked. This was in the early 2000s, and there was no Caitlyn Jenner, Transamerica hadn't come out yet, and I'd missed the few other movies or other media about being transgender. From my current perspective, I was naive at best. Transgender was certainly not discussed at any of the public schools I had attended. In short, the trans community was completely unknown to me. I'm sure I was partly just oblivious to anything outside of my bubble. As an engineering student, I was surrounded by predominantly straight white men focused on when the next physics test was, but I'm also pretty sure that transgender rights, or gay rights for that matter, were not a national conversation at this point. And although I have many gay friends now and a few transgender ones, most of them were still in the closet when we were in college. And I remember thinking about how my understanding of transgender issues was limited to some documentary on how one would go about getting a sex change. Of course, being a scientist at heart, I was most fascinated by the procedure itself rather than the emotional aspect. Did you guys know that doctors can change penises into vaginas? It's amazing. Science is amazing. But that's pretty much all I had ever even thought about. All of this is just to say that, to me, this letter was shocking, bold, and brave. Very, very brave. For the next few weeks, I shared the letter with various friends, curious what they thought about it and unsure myself what to think. I'm embarrassed to admit that I shared the letter at times for the humor and shock value it was sure to invoke. Ultimately, though, I still liked Dr. Berkowitz and saw no reason to change my relationship with her. I suppose that is my one saving grace to how I handled someone bearing their soul in such a public way and asking only for trust and acceptance in return. At the time, I asked myself if there was a need to question his or her skills or attend an information session. My friends all had mixed reactions. Mostly they expressed shock mixed with uncomfortable laughter. And a few wanted updates the next time I saw Dr. Berkowitz. Remember, we were tactless college kids. One of my very good friends even suggested that I stop going to see him, or more appropriately, her now, just because they felt that it was weird, especially for my gyno visits. And although I was ignorant and didn't fully understand what transgender meant, I didn't see how it would affect the quality of my care. I told my friend that if Dr. Berkowitz wished that he had a vagina, then whom better to take care of mine? I mean, really. If you are considering turning your penis into a vagina, then you must know a lot about vaginas. As an aside, the letter did not go into detail about how far he was going to become a she. I just made a few personal assumptions. A few months passed, and I gave very little thought to the letter until I got my reminder about my yearly appointment. I never went to an information session, but I really had no reason not to see Dr. Berkowitz again. I still wanted to talk to him, even if he was a her now. Deep down, I knew it really didn't change anything. So I went to my appointment with a neutral mindset, happy to see my friendly neighborhood doctor, no matter what clothes they decided to put on that morning. When Dr. Berkowitz walked into the exam room, wearing a dress and with long hair, I didn't really think that much of it. She looked different, for sure, but she still had her warm smile and calm nature that had put me at ease in the past. The appointment went on without incident. As we wrapped up all the required medical talk, Dr. Berkowitz changed the subject. I noticed you didn't attend any of the information sessions, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask me any questions you might have about my transition. I had not expected this, and just responded spontaneously and openly. I don't have any questions. Then added, I think you look great. Immediately, she blushed, just as any woman would at an unexpected compliment from a friend. Then she stammered, thank you. You can come back anytime. She beamed a great smile, and I saw her face relax, as if some source of anxiety previously undetectable had just melted away. Looking back, I can only imagine what questions she had been asked in similar settings with other patients, and I'm sure she had steeled herself in preparation for anything that I might throw at her. I have since moved away from the area and no longer see Dr. Berkowitz, but I think about her often, especially after all of the Caitlyn Jenner media attention and more recently the Houston Hero Initiative. I think about how ignorant and naive I was at the time and how lucky I am that my parents taught me to be open-minded first and foremost. This really kept me from being callous even if I was ignorant. Perhaps in a post-Caitlyn Jenner world where transgender rights in the military are an open topic of discussion, this story is insignificant. Although I doubt it was insignificant for Deborah Berkowitz. More than a decade before Caitlyn, Deborah quietly acknowledged her need to change and asked the people who depended on her to accept that change. She did so gracefully and with a frank openness that made trusting her and her decision easy, even for a sheltered young woman like myself. For me, she solidified how open communication, compassion, and education really can change the world. So if you're listening, Dr. Berkowitz, I hope that you're happy. and flourishing as the woman you were meant to be. I bet all that confidence still looks great on you. Thank you.